Next session is called Mothers Without Borders, Steering Youth Away from Violent Extremism. The speaker will be Hauwa Ibrahim. She is an international human rights and Shariah law attorney. Here to introduce Ms. Ibrahim is Dr. Tracey Cameron. Dr. Cameron is the Assistant Dean of Intercultural Education and Director of Harambee House. Please give them a round of applause.
Good morning. I hope that the conference experience has been to your satisfaction thus far, and that you are ready to add additional resources to your leadership toolkit. This morning's presentation is entitled Mothers Without Borders, Steering Youth from Violent Extremism, and it is a pleasure to have with us Hauwa Ibrahim, who is an international human rights and Shariah law attorney with over 20 years of experience representing women and children condemned to death in Shariah courts. Ibrahim is founder of Aries Law Firm and author of Practicing Shariah Law, 7 Strategies for Achieving Justice in Shariah Courts. She has served as envoy for the United Nations, on the International Bar Association's Council on Human Rights, and on Nigeria's presidential panel to review compliance of the armed forces with human rights obligations and rules engagement. Ibrahim has appeared before the United States Senate and House of Representatives. She was a visiting lecturer at Harvard Divinity School, a visiting professor at University of Rome, Italy, and a senior fellow at Majlis El-Hassan in Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. Ibrahim was honored with the 2005 Sakharov Prize for Freedom of Thought. Her current research addresses root causes of terrorism and radicalization of youth. Please join me in welcoming visiting scholar at the Wellesley Centers for Women, Hauwa Ibrahim.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for the kind and generous introduction. So I came with this small piece of paper, and I wanted to speak from my heart to your heart. And I feel I want to jump down and speak with you rather than stand here and speak to you. I'm not sure the setting is meant for that, though. So if you'll be kind to move forward, if you don't, I'll move backward. I'll go to you. I want to, first of all, thank so much President Paula Johnson. She is meant for this time. She's a woman of a time like this, when you can pull together about 30 countries under the same roof. This is amazing leadership, and so we give it to her. MasterCard Foundation, the massive investment you have done, we say thank you. Wellesley Center for Women, Layli, thank you so much for having me in your center. The other facilitators, the other professors here from other universities on Wellesley. I want to thank especially the cleaners that are keeping this place clean for us to enjoy. I want to say thank you to the kitchen for giving us sumptuous food. Earlier, I was speaking to Frank at the end. Frank, thank you for the security of this place. But most importantly, you. Your resilience You kept coming. Yesterday was an amazing day, but it was a good day. And you came today. So thank you, and we say thank you to all of you that are here today. I want to thank my friends from Lincoln and elsewhere that were able to make it. But let me say with respect that I want to also give a shout out to Nigerians that are here. And I want to say especially there is a lady, that Anita, that came with her few weeks old baby, and she is an Wellesley alumni. I think that is amazing. This is the next generation. So thank you for coming all the way from Lagos, and all the others that came far and wide. May I give some few disclaimers here? English is my fifth language. I never learned English in a classroom. So if you do not understand what I'm saying, please wave, and I will repeat myself, okay? And when I mix the vocabulary or modern English, you forgive me for that, okay? Okay. Let me start by saying that I want to speak from my heart to your heart, and that is why I didn't make any really preparation that is massive. And I hope we'll engage. We are going to have a conversation. I was here throughout yesterday, and I was here throughout today. And I know as a fact that there are a list of things that were given to us. If we do this, I want to go to the how do we do it, the how. So my focus is going to be on the how. And I hope we will share experiences and examples that are concrete to take us home. We have done a bit of it, and we can do a little bit more. I became educated by accident. I became a lawyer by accident. I went to teach at Harvard by accident. So when you want us to make a conversation in Q&A, we will do that. When Dr. Kekenya yesterday was speaking about herself, I could relate to that very easily. We all have stories, and your stories are at times more powerful. It pales before mine. So I acknowledge each of you with the powerful story you have and you bring here. And I hope, as she was introducing the afternoon, that we are going to be stronger together, and we are going to take something away that is not only the talk, but it's the doing. And that is my strength, the hands-on, the go back to the field, get it done person. And I'm sure you are doing a lot, and together we will have a conversation, how can we take it to the next level to do much more? I will share a lot of my experiences, and I hope I can get to hear a lot of yours as well. 10 years ago, I came to Harvard Radcliffe, and I met Paula Johnson, never knowing she would be president one day. And for goodness sake, I don't know where she found me and brought me back here today, but that is leadership. On its own, that is massive leadership. That we identify the potential in each of us, and that instead of the acronym PhD, who knows what is PhD? Pull her down. No, we will pull her up. And that is what Paula did with me, pulling me up. 10 years after, I'm still hanging around Harvard, but now in Wellesley. I have done other things, and in Q&A, we will speak about it. But I came from a little village in the northern Nigeria called Hina. And if there is something I want to say at this junction is that we all come from a place. So if we de-emphasize Africa, we just say where we come from. Let people go and research where it is, because you are also special in your own space. So I'm not from Africa. I am from Africa, but I am from a village called Hina, okay? And it's in the northern Nigeria. It's in Gombe State. And part of my root is from the Boko Haram state. My mother is from Borno, which is the Boko Haram state. My father is from Gombe. I have worked a lot with the Boko Haram, the girls that were kidnapped. So if you want me to speak about it, I'll speak about it at some time. In 2014, if you remember, some of you that follow Twitters, and social media, we had over 300 girls kidnapped. So I work in that field. Before then, I was a lawyer in the Sharia courts. And I will speak about that if you also want to hear it, because I want to focus on Mothers Without Borders. So I was a Sharia court lawyer, and I practiced law in the Sharia court for several years. Before then, I was a prosecutor. And I started from road traffic cases to what we call in Nigeria the 221, meaning that the culpable homicide punishable with death. And before then, I was a police officer. So I have crisscrossed a little bit, and I hope in our sharing we will share a little bit more. In 2014, when the girls were kidnapped, the president of Nigeria, then President Jonathan, invited me, I was still at Harvard doing something, to come back to Nigeria and join a team. So I was only independent person to join a team of 26 others. And so we handled the matter of how do we help in rescuing the girls. While we were doing that, some of my past came back to me. Remember, I was a police officer. I came from that region. I speak their language. I mean, not Hausa only. I speak the language of poverty. I grew up very poor. We had no electricity, no road. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that. But it's not the education you have, as Farida will say, it's how you apply it. So we started the effort of helping to recover the girls kidnapped by Boko Haram. And so we were in the process, and we had drones given to us by United States, by Israel, by France, by Britain, and other countries. And then they enhanced that by intelligence officers. And so we'll come and sit on the table with the intelligence officers. And they would tell us, we need more Apache helicopters. We need to detect more of where the girls have been. We need the drones. And one day I was sitting down in my room in the evening, and something dawned on me, that these men are so interesting. Everybody is talking about military hardware. And I thought there is something else that is not on the table. And this is the soft power, not the hard power. And for me, the soft power was the power of the mother. So it just started as an idea. And for some of you, don't limit what is inside of you. Make that idea when you feel like it, get it out. So I decided I'm going to talk to my colleagues whom I met in the state that are already senior police officers. So I said to them, can I go to the prison? And they say, let me ask my chairman, who is a general in the army. But the chairman was very clear that it's not in our terms of reference. We have 5 terms of reference. It's not for me to go to the prison. But if I decide to do that, I am on my own. So my colleagues, other police officers, and I disguise myself. For some of you that can see me, I think I am properly dressed. But when I'm going to the prison, I wore the hijab, okay? I was totally covered with the hijab. I have to protect the officers taking me in, and I also have to protect myself because it's not what I was supposed to be doing. So we went to the prison. We were able to meet. First, I asked for the first information report. They call it FIR. So they gave me about 200 files. I scaled it down to about 20, and then to about 6 and 4, we saw the parent. I went to the village to see the parent with locals. And in Q&A, we will engage in that. So I went to see the parent, especially the mothers. And my idea was to ask the mother about their children. But I went through it a different way, knowing the language matters. So it turns out that the mothers were feeling that the children were already dead because Boko Haram, they were killing them left, right, and center. And that was actually the last work I was doing in Nigeria just a few weeks ago. So because of that, with the help of those locals, we were able to get them to come with us to the city where the children are, the Boko Haram in the prison. And so we went to the prison with the mothers. Now, some of you know in some of our cultures that when a boy is about 10, 12, he doesn't sort of embrace his mother. He's just a small man. So this is my culture. So when we walk into the prison, we sat. The men are always sitting on the chair. We are always women sitting on the floor. So the mothers and I were sitting on the floor. And one of the boys approached. He was coming and he noticed somebody that looked like his mother. And he ran. And then he fell on his mother. And he hugged his mother. And he started crying. He was about 25. And the mother started crying. He thought nobody cares. She thought he was dead. But she used 3 words. She just asked him in 3 words in Hausa. Aisha is here. So she asked him in Hausa, "Me ya faru?" Something in English like, what went so wrong? In the meantime, he has been in detention for over 3 years. And he had been tortured. And when I say torture, Guantanamo is not torture. He was really tortured, and nobody was able to extract anything from him. But the mother just asked, what went so wrong? And he is unstoppable. He started saying how he got into it, and this is thing they couldn't get by torturing him. And all the police and the security guard around them decided to bring a tape recorder to record what he was saying. And at that moment, I felt there is indeed a power beyond the hardware power. There is a power beyond, and that is the soft power of the mother. And in Islam, there is a hadith of the Holy Prophet that spoke about a man coming to the Holy Prophet and asking him, "Where should my loyalty lies?" And the Prophet, may peace be upon him, said to him, "Your mother." He asks again, "Where does my loyalty lies?" He said, "Your mother." And so also the 3rd time. It was only the 4th time that he said his father. So in the culture, in the religion, the mother is a matriarch. And some of us that are on the field, we have to cultivate the power of the matriarch. We spoke about the Queen Mother at the beginning of the session. So we have to look beyond what we can see and decipher. So there is a power, not only that we speak about it, but also engraved that the children were brought up with. And that is part of the discussion, the mindset or mind thinking of having a mothers association, mothers to talk about something. It wasn't coming clear as in 2004. Until 2015, when His Royal Highness Prince Hassan of Jordan asked me to come and work on issues of social justice. And as usual, if I'm not in trouble, that is not a good day. So I decided to engage with the ISIS members in the camp in Zatari. Some of you that know Jordan, Jordan has maybe about 10 million people. 9 million are refugees, or even 9.5. And they are housed in camps. So there is one camp in Zatari, which has 1 million refugees. And that is a massive breathing ground for ISIS recruits. So I decided to engage myself with the mothers. They are the unsung heroes. And they are trying to steer away their children from entering ISIS. And for those ones that came back, they are embraced by the mothers. They are the fruit of our womb. They are our children. And I saw how they did it, and I thought, why don't we have a conversation around that. So it was becoming clear. And in 2016, I had a conversation in Radcliffe at Harvard University, and I invited women from 13 countries. And so we started Mothers Without Borders initiative. Now, having done that, 2 of the women that came, I thought I was doing it for Nigeria. I had worked a bit in Kenya and Yemen, so we invited those women. So a few of the women that came decided, oops, we are going to take it to the next level. And one of them is a German. And she was then the acting president of Oldenburg University. And she went and asked for a grant in 2016. Leila, who has met her. Her name is Katharina. She got a 3-year grant because of the refugee situation in Germany. She got the grant, and she started Mothers Without Borders, keeping youth away from violent extremism. So the German project started, and last year I was there to give the lecture. But for me, it's partly ideas that you allow it to have a life of its own. Another lady that came from Toronto, a Chinese, that was at Radcliffe, decided to help us with mapping the teen's brain, T-E-E-N, teen. So she's mapping the teen brain. And so we're having something similar, taking the conversation to another level in July. So that is the first concept of Mothers Without Borders. But this is what I am working on right now. And I'm more than happy to start engaging. I've just dropped some few concepts, and I really want to jump in the middle so that we can have a conversation. If you want to know how I did this, and I don't want to speak to what you don't want to know, I want to speak to what you want to know. So I will stop at this moment, and let us engage in a conversation. Thank you for your moment today. Thank you. Aisha.
Hello, I'm Aisha from Michigan State University. I'm from Nigeria, from the northern part of Nigeria. My question is, with Mothers Without Borders, what have you guys been able to implement? For example, I'm talking specifically for Nigeria, for the Almajiri system, because most of the kids in the Almajiri system are the ones that actually joined Boko Haram because of poverty and marginalization, and we haven't really been able to solve that problem in the north. And what are the ways Mothers Without Borders have been able to counteract that problem or find solutions to that problem?
So what we have done, it's maybe not one single bullet that we have sent out there to do the work. There are organizations in Nigeria that are doing a lot of work. And they are doing a lot of work, especially in the camps in Maiduguri in Borno State, with those ones that are coming out of Boko Haram or they are entering Boko Haram. So we go there, try to see how we can help them enhance their capacity. I have done that in September last year. We have identified a couple of issues that pull them. Remember, Boko Haram sprang out after the introduction of Shariah in 1999. Okay? So when Shariah was introduced in 1999 in northern Nigeria, we have over 200 million people in Nigeria. So it's like take all the countries in Africa and remove 1 or 2, you can find them in that amazing country. So it's sharply divided between the south and the north, and the Boko Haram is only in the north. The Sharia, when it was introduced in 1999, was in the north. And the Boko Haram started in 2009. And maybe let me use it as a segue to say a little bit about Sharia, because then you will see our strategy, how I was able to work with the mullahs. Maybe that could give you the strategy we are still using right now in a broader way, but this example could help you. So in 1999, after the introduction of Sharia, they were looking for female lawyers to help defend the girls that were sentenced to be stoned by to be stoned to death. And it is a northern thing. So we have over 80 million Muslims in Nigeria, and a chunk of them is in the north. So they were looking for lawyers, female. Remember, I became educated by accident, so there are not many female lawyers into practice in the northern Nigeria, okay? And they approached some other women, and nobody wanted to take it. And I was saying, why not me? So I took it up, and I started those cases in 1999. The first case was in 2000, but the cases started in 1999. It was a case of barrier, and it went on. Between 1999 and 2008, when I came to Harvard, I have handled 157 cases of women sentenced to death by stoning and boys sentenced to have their limbs amputated, okay? And I have done it pro bono. It is important that I stress this because we have the privilege to come into the Western world and we go back. It's okay, Kenya was saying, they say they don't work like the Americans. No, when you go back, you are you, so you remain the authentic you. So by the time you start bending a little bit into taking money from donors, it could be a challenge. So I have something, and what I have was education. What I have was I was trained to be a lawyer. That I can give without money. And I'm not suggesting you should try my method, but I knew I was challenged in the Nigerian press that is listened to with more than 100 million, Nigerian NTA. Somebody said, oh, Hauwa Ibrahim, that's my name. Oh, she is taking money from the West to destroy Islam. She's taking money to destroy Shariah. For me to carry my shoulders high and my head up, I can't, not even in my dream, take money from anybody. You know what you're doing? You know where your strength and your weakness lie? Stay away from your weakness. So money was totally out of it. When I cannot travel by car, I take a motorbike. When I cannot travel by motorbike, we take the bicycle. When the bicycle doesn't work, we take the donkey. And when the donkey doesn't work, we take the camel. Where the camel stops, we walk. So I did 157 cases, 0 naira, which is a Nigerian currency. And I will say to them, if anybody comes out and say, I take money, I will drop all the cases I'm doing. You need your shoulders high. So the cases were pro bono. Over the time I was doing some of these cases, I had a BBC reporter called Umar Farouk, some of you that listen to BBC Hausa. He interviewed me in Hausa. He asked only a simple question. And the question was, is stoning to death in the Quran? I was born and bred a Muslim. And by that teaching, you sort of memorize the Quran. So I memorized the Quran, and I sort of know it. I said, no, I'm not sure I saw that in the Quran. In my research in the Bible, I made 39 citations of stoning to death, but I'm sure it's in the Quran. That was my answer. And the mullahs decided to answer me back on the radio. Same interview, I went to interview them. And they told him that Hauwa Ibrahim is anti-Islam. And she's anti-Sharia. And what that means is apostasy. And so they issued severally 6 fatwas on me. So it's either I stay under their armpit, running away from being killed, or I go back to the field and then face it. But I decided that I want to speak to them. I want to engage with them. I want to see them. But it's not an easy feat to do that. So I called the reporter that interviewed me. And I said to him, those people you interview, the mullahs, the malams, can I see them? He said, no, you cannot, because that's so dangerous. And I said, please, Umar, please help me. Because in our culture, you have what they call the ISO, somebody to go ahead of you to introduce you to. So I wanted him to do the ISO for me. after a long persistence, he said, okay. And the hero of what I'm saying now is the mullahs, not me. So they decided to see me, but they decided to see me in a mosque. And it was in the main mosque in Abuja, which is the central mosque. That is 2001. And I entered the mosque, is maybe 10 times or 20 times the size of this hall. And they were there sitting at the end of the hall, 8 of them, all in big turban. And I walked in totally covered, totally, completely covered. And I'm emphasizing that because we have to be sensitive, absolutely sensitive in what we do at times. I was entering the mosque and I have to be covered. I have made photocopies of the cases I was doing and I walk into the mosque. And there was one chair by the side of the mosque, and I saw the chair, but I didn't walk toward the chair. I walked toward the mullahs. Getting close to them, I knelt down and I sat on the floor. And they were quiet for some time, and they chorused at the same time to say, "Are you Hauwa Ibrahim?" I can't look at them on their faces. So I was looking on the floor. I said, "As you please, I am. Are you the lawyer?" And I said, "Yes, sir." They said, "So you didn't forget your religious teaching?" I said, "You did not forget your culture." I said, But I said more. And I never spoke about the interview on the radio at all. I said to them, I am a foolish lawyer. I am a silly lawyer. I'm trying to help those women and children, but I'm not sure I'm getting it right. I came to them because I needed their wisdom. I came to them because I needed their knowledge. That was why I went to the mosque to see them. Let me pause and say, this is my dynamic. I don't know what your dynamic is. I choose to walk within my dynamics. I have been severely challenged by women for some of the things I have done. Before the mullahs, I was not a lawyer. I have no air. I have no importance. It's not about me. It's about the women that have been sentenced to die by stoning. It's about the children that have been sentenced to have their limbs amputated. That was what was about, not me. Never put an act on. It came from inside. That was my culture. That was how I was brought up. I don't sit on a chair when all the men are sitting on a chair. They were quiet for some time, and for the first time in 9 months, we engaged. I told them what I was doing. They listened to me. At the end of it, they said, we will publicly not support what you are doing, but we'll also publicly not be against you. That was what I needed. That was all I needed. If they were not against me, it means that I can continue the cases. What is your strategy? What is your dynamic? We've had here, define what you need. For me, I'm not in a position to define because my trouble finds me in a way, or my challenges finds me. In as much as I agree 100% that you need to define, for some of us, we walk in it daily, so you walk inside it. And back to what you were saying earlier, when we get to the camps of the Boko Haram right now, we understand what the dynamic is. When we are not supposed to speak, we shut up. And there is wisdom in listening. And what we are trying to do, and what I hope will push a little bit further in July, is to create opportunity. There is 4 things I noticed in the camp. They are totally voiceless. They are powerless. They are poor. And they are illiterate. That is not a good mixture. And when you think about recruitment, when 70% of the northeastern Nigeria, boys between the ages of 15 and 25, or maybe 30, have no job, of course Boko Haram will give them hope. When Boko Haram said, Western education is what is causing corruption in Nigeria, so we need to do away with Boko, which is the Western education. Haram is the opposite of halal. So it's forbidden. Let us forbid it. So partly this is part of the strategy I was using, and I'll mention it for those people taking note. I saw some people taking note that know your dynamic and work within it. Have a focus and stay focused. For those ones that may read low one day, I want to suggest to you, know your substance. When I started practicing in Sharia court, I had no voice at all. It took me 7 years. For those of you that have watched the BBC program In the Name of Allah, the CNN In the Name of God is 1 hour program of the work I have done, and in Opera magazine. At every given stage, I stayed focused. But the important thing is when I'm in the courtroom and I know I had no voice, I look for somebody that has a voice, which is a man, that is my genius, and I pass notes. So in the documentary, you see me passing notes to a man to speak on my behalf. It took 7 years for me to enter the courtroom and the judge to say, Hauwa, is that your case? If it is your case, do your case. 7 years after. At what point do we stop and say it's not about us? So stay focused. Lawyers, know your substance, know the law. And I would suggest what I do is I try to eat it. I eat the law. I digest it, and I try to breathe it. And I become an authority without becoming an authority. So for the most part, after the boy comes out of court, the young man, they will ask him, oh, what did, he said, no, where is Hauwa? And much later, the judges will say, we need her to come. But it took resilience. And some of us have it in abundance, some of us are cultivating it. Think global, act local. Aline, you have my book. What are the other challenges? What are the other strategies? I said focus. The law is your strength. Understand the dynamic. Be firm and flexible. When it comes to issues of law, I don't compromise whatsoever. When it comes to principle, when it comes to the society, I do compromise because I come from there. So it's an oxymoron. How do you become firm and flexible? You young leaders, be firm, but yet be flexible. Don't take everything that you are saying, and I was hearing yesterday and today as well. When you think you know, that is when you don't know. And I ask you with respect that you hunger and thirst after knowledge. Hunger and thirst after knowledge. It equips you. Finally, maybe before somebody asks a question, I'll try to answer. I'm using Kenya's strategy. What keeps me going? And I'll tell you about how do I get my resources. I still don't have resources. I don't need resources. I have kept going, and I'm keeping going because it comes. When it will come, it come. I have a deep faith. And when something will happen, it will happen. But I have to be careful to put a gap between me and resources. And I'm not saying resources is bad. I have no judgment on that. But let me end by telling you what keeps me a bit at times going. From a story I'll give you of a prophet in one of the holy books. He was in disarray. He was troubled. The prophet's name is Elijah. Elijah was troubled. And he was troubled for his people, the Israelites. So he decided to pray. And he was praying. And then there was a wind, a whirlwind, this powerful wind, more than the one we had in Boston some days ago. And he said, now God is in this wind, he's going to speak. But God was not in the wind. And then there was thunder and storm, like the snow. I said, God is in this thunder, he's going to speak. God was neither in the thunder. And there was fire. It was described as a consuming fire. He said, finally, God is going to speak. God was not in the fire. And then it continued. And what keeps me at that moment, it was like quietness. I said, peace, be still. Peace, be still. That is my mantra. When the world is on fire, when I have fatwas, when I don't know whether I will reach the following day, when I take unusual steps to do unusual things, and I don't know what is your own circumstances, remember to pull back, and may peace be still.
Thank you so very much for the inspiration as well as for your wisdom. Your work sits at the intersection of faith and justice. And in addition to today's talk, I've also heard your TED Talk, and I have watched many lectures on YouTube that you have done. And one thing that is apparent to me is this theme of compassion. And when one thinks of characteristics of effective leadership, compassion may not be one of the first traits or behaviors that come to mind. So can you discuss the role of compassion or empathy and the role that it plays in your work?
I find it difficult to sit to talk. Can I stand? I feel disrespectful of the society of the It's also cultural, you know. So you talk about compassion. You know, I forgive me, at times I do interpret words. And I want to say, it's not about compassion. It's that each of us have a power of one inside of us. And we are looking for it. And some of us are helping you to find it or to make it happen. So it's less of compassion per se, but for me it's that I'm opportune, that I'm privileged to do the work I'm doing. For me, every day is a blessing. And I'm not living for yesterday at all. In fact, if I don't have something to do for tomorrow, some challenge to face for tomorrow, then tomorrow will be boring. So I never think about what I do as compassion with respect, but I think that that's what I'm supposed to do, and that is where I'm supposed to be. And like I was talking of power of one, but then there is a bigger power when we are together.
Thank you. Are there other questions from the audience? Right here.
Okay. My name is Grace Toman from Liberia. I'm so much impressed from your lecture. My question is, as women as whole, we have a lot of intersection. We have, challenges. But as a Muslim woman, we have more intersection, and we have more criticism when we stand up for what we know is right, actually from our faith. So my question to you is, how did you convince your leaders, your spiritual leaders, when all this criticism, all this, we know our faith, we know, as a woman, when you stand up, we know what challenge you are going to face. Sometimes it's more terrible than what you expect. So how did you convince your leaders that you are not anti-Sharia, you are not anti-Muslim, but you were doing what you think was right for the people you stood for?
Excellent question. I really don't convince them. Now, I tell you one of my life motto is that show them, don't tell them. Show it. And so we can come and tell you, but you need to show in reality. So my life is an open book. So I do, and then after I do, at times I get people that believe. So in a lot of things that I've done with the mullahs, going to the mosques, and partly what I've done, and I want to speak about that to your question, is looking for allies. So it's not you alone on the field. We heard about collaboration, we heard of networking, but let me suggest something else, the uncommon allies. Not the usual allies, not the usual us in the room. And I found my own in the beggars, and the blind, and the lepers. These are my allies. Who knows what I'm talking about? The uncommon allies, the beggars. How would they become my allies? Remember the story I told you on the villages we go to? We have no electricity, so we don't have a TV. So we don't have a radio. So the only big communication hub we have are the beggars. For those of you that knows about the village or have been one or you know one, they go from house to house. Oh, give me money, I want to buy maize for my family today. My wife just gave birth, I want to buy the ram to make the naming ceremony. Oh, I need money to go to the hospital, my child is sick. They go from house to beg. And they are the powerful informant in the society. The next person sitting to you may be the powerful person you will ever meet in your life. So don't take it for granted. So we use the informant we have locally to make our allies, but also remember that they give, but they also take. And so you have to show, not to tell. You have to be transparent. And I ask you, in addition to what you heard, that you have a pure heart and you have a clean hands. And that is one biggest recipe I use in showing and not telling. I think we have chance for 2-3 more questions. We'll take them together, yes.
My name's Irene. I live here in Boston, but I'm from Uganda. And I really appreciated your storytelling in the sense that as you walked into the box, you were cognizant of the cultural demands and the power struggles between the men and the women. I appreciated the fact that you sat down versus leveled with them by sitting on a chair. And the way that you influenced these gentlemen was really telling, in the sense that as women of color, how delicate we have to approach any type of negotiation or dance with anybody. And so you said that in order to something, we have to cultivate the matriarch. How are you cultivating the matriarch as you go through this journey of trying to negotiate with all of the stakeholders with whom you have to influence?
So I'll tell you, I live by stories. I'll tell you one about how I did that. So the judge that was the judge sitting in case of Amina Lawal, one of the ladies sentenced to die by stoning. Now the law, there is a law in Shariah. And we argued and lost the case of Amina. Amina was sentenced to die by stoning because she allegedly confessed and she was pregnant out of wedlock. That was the reason why she was sentenced to be stoned to death. In the meantime, the law has made clear provision under Section 277 about the fact of Nigerian Constitution about criminal law and civil matters. And to stone to death is a capital case and it cannot be entertained. However, the Sharia court says that under Section 4 of the same Constitution, they have the powers to make good laws for good governance and for peace of their people. So they are using these laws to get to where they want to do. But in the meantime, the judge had also impregnated another woman out of wedlock. Now, in a lot of hadiths, so verifiable hadith, a person that will sit in judgment of a woman sentenced to die by stoning must be pious. He must be clean. Actually, he must be like a saint. So what we did was to dig out a little bit about the judge. And then we know who he is, what he has done, what he has not done. Now remember when we went to court, we argued on 4 matters, on 4 pillars. We argue issues of law, we fail. We argue issues of fact, we fail. We argue issues of procedure, we fail. And then we argue issues of technicalities, part of what we won. If we have time, we could share that, but I'm sure we'll have time. So we don't argue those 4 pillars. We won the first few cases on technicalities. But this is what we will do when we arrive court. Remember, I'm not allowed to speak. So I'll pass a note to the male. So in this very matter, it was in Huntua, and the young man didn't read his name, Yawuri didn't read my note. So I stood up. And I said, may it pleases the court. There are these provisions under the penal code, the Sharia penal code of Katsina State, and I was listening what it says. Now, the proof of zina, for you to be able to prove it, this is 1, 2, 3. The woman must have confessed, she must be pregnant out of wedlock, and there must be 4 male witnesses that have witnessed the act of sexual intercourse without cover. In fact, it was described as a cajole, the stick entering the cajole. You must see it in that form, which is impossible to prove. But we can go into that another time. And we said, when we were arguing and the judge was not coming to us, it was like, Hauwa, can you please sit down? Somebody is speaking on your behalf. So I said, yes, my lord, I just wanted to say it. But it was, of course, entering here and going out there. But the other thing that happened in that day that we had this matter was the fact of bringing sentiment into it. What about if she's your sister? What about if it's your daughter? How will you think about it? So to a very large extent, it was very clear that the matter before the judge that has done this sort of crime, somebody is waving me, so I have to go now, that is waving me, that the matter before the judge ended up because we indirectly made him know that he may not be in a position, without saying, to be the saint for the case. So, back to your question. How do you get it done? Show it. Research, be on top of your game as a lawyer. And as you go out, if I can give you a song, I have to get out of here. That you are strong women, we have heard about that. But let me make my list that I make here. I want you to have it in your head. You have it, but I just want to underscore it. We do good as African women. It is part of our DNA. We are hardworking. We need the family. Okay, we are like trade and injection. We need the family. That's what we are. We gather under our wing like a hen. When something is coming to attack her kids, you put it under her wing. We gather. We keep the warmth. When it is snow or rain or cold, we embrace. That is our DNA. We don't demand respect, we command respect. Women, we command it. And you don't say it, you show it. We are deeply beautiful. You are looking beautiful here, but inside you is more beauty. Expose it. Use it powerfully. Have purity in your moral standard. Make it high. Never allow your candle fire to go down, because you are the light.